Hello, viewers. I hope I am audible and visible. This is another attempt at being live on YouTube using OBS, Original Broadcasting Studio, whatever that stands for. And in this video, I'm going to try to talk about the last few long form videos that I've uploaded on this channel, starting from video number 488. I just need one moment to confirm if I'm actually live, because there have been instances where I've gone on speaking for hours only to realize that I was not in fact live. So just give me about a few minutes. I don't think I'll take a lot of time. Just give me a little bit of time and I will confirm whether I am live or not. And I will then start talking about the different aspects of the last few long form videos that I've uploaded on this channel. So just a little bit of time is what I want. I am also in this live stream, I'm going to talk about not just the last few videos, but I'm also going to talk about some important things, such as I'm going to talk about what happened to me in the last week. So we will get to that as well. And so while I wait to confirm, let me play around a little bit with the OBS software. And okay, so this is going to be the first topic we are going to talk about. And in the meantime, let me just confirm if I'm live or not. Okay, so I am live now. I can really go back to the original screen. Okay, so I am live now. I can. Sorry about that. I think I still have a thing or two to learn about OBS. It is definitely indicating that I am still figuring it out as I go along, which is not ideal. Definitely not ideal, but at least I'm honest and describing my struggles in real time. This has to go. Okay. Let me just get the chroma key filter working. It will not take more than a few seconds. I think it will be about 30 seconds. Yes, I think I'm almost done. Yeah, I hope you can see me. So now we'll talk about the first few videos, the video number 488 all the way to video number 503 in this particular live stream. Let's go to video number 488. I believe video number 488 we talked about 8com. Just need to confirm. I don't want to get the sequence wrong. Yes. So video number 488 talked about how to learn to communicate perfectly with patients in less than 25 minutes. Now, communication skills are essential if you want to be a doctor. The way you communicate with patients not just reflects the ability to assuage the concerns of the patient, but also it is your duty to be able to patiently listen to the patient's complaints, be respectful, be non judgmental, be non threatening, and express the appropriate level of empathy when you are communicating with patients. Now, these may sound very big, fancy words, but it's basically a very human interaction that you should have with another fellow human being. It's just that it's something that I've always stated to everyone who cares to listen is that not all of us are doctors, but all of us will be patients or are patients at some point of time. So it's like the doctrine that is espoused in many religions, but it's a very common sense doctrine that do unto others what you expect them to do unto you. You should treat patients in the same way that you would want to be treated if and when you are also a patient. So that's what I feel is a very simple way of explaining how you should talk to patients. And I've explained that in a PowerPoint presentation manner. This is something which is part of the curriculum. I strongly support this, that the National Medical Commission of India has introduced these modules called 8com modules, 8com, AETCOM, which stands for Attitude, Ethics, and Communication, which really helps medical students understand that it's not just about gaining knowledge, it's not just about gaining skills in terms of how to perform procedures, it's also about how to communicate with patients. And I believe that because these modules have been introduced in India, a medical graduate from India is at par with any medical graduate in any other part of the world, where these things have been introduced for a long time. An interesting thing that I noticed is there was this article published in one of the famous medical journals of India, which talked about violence against healthcare workers. And I was unpleasantly surprised to see that violence against healthcare workers is a fairly common phenomenon, not just in India, but all over the world. So, one of the aspects that has been identified as things that you can do to minimize conflict or de-escalate conflicts is to develop good communication skills. Now, that's not a foolproof method. I accept it. There are situations when even if you are communicating in the best possible way, violence can be there. Communication doesn't always stop a person intent on creating chaos through violence, but one of the tools at your disposal is to communicate properly, and that is something which I believe is imperative for every doctor, every medical professional to learn. So that was the attempt in video number 488. In video number 489, I moved to a genre that I really like, which is called alternative comedy, which is not necessarily stuff you'll find funny, but that is precisely the point. It's my attempt at humor. And in video number 489, I talked about Cockney rhyming slang. So, Cockney rhyming slang, I believe, is one of the things that I learned without really realizing that people in different parts of the world were actually doing it. For example, I had a senior whose name was Mahesh. I don't want to reveal his entire name, but his name was Mahesh. And there was a cricketer whose name was Yo Mahesh, very, very famous cricketer. His name was Yo Mahesh. So I used to call my senior Mahesh Da Yo. Or actually, I never called him that, but we used to refer to him as Yo. Because Yo Mahesh was the cricketer, his name was Mahesh, so we used to call him Yo. Cockney rhyming slang is almost like that. So you have something like stairs, which rhymes with pears, and pears is often used with apples and pears. So apples become stairs. Mahesh da and yo Mahesh had the same word common, Mahesh, and we used to use yo. Here, apples and pears. Pears rise with stairs, so you drop the pears, you use apples to refer to stairs. This doesn't make it obvious, but you're going to talk about something which is there. Okay. So, rhyming slang, two-word slang, which where one word is rhyming with the other word, and the rhyming word is actually dropped. So, dog and bone is rhyming with phone, so you drop the word bone. The dog is barking means the phone is ringing. It's very interesting slang which is used in parts of London, especially I believe the East End of London, which I find is fascinating. That part of London is the most eclectic, is the word that is used. But basically, it's just beautiful to look at. There's wall art. There is, you don't really feel the strange thing about London, and I guess I was not able to identify the looks I was getting. I don't know the way they were looking at me, but I know how I was looking at them. That part I can say with confidence. I knew the perspective I had, and I felt at home in London. Not because I have this ardent love of affair with the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. It's not that. Of course, we in India, in certain parts of India, in certain kinds of background, we have grown up knowing a lot about the British for obvious reasons. But when I went to London, I really experienced something which I felt was overblown in the media. But it is true that when you go to London, you meet people from all over the world. It's not just white European people. You meet people from all over the world, and that really is something which needs to be experienced to believe. Some people don't like it. There are people who oppose that also. But from my point of view, as somebody visiting London for the first time, it was something which was quite comforting. Now, video number 490 talks about fifth column. Now, fifth column is a term which originated, I believe, during the Spanish Civil War. The Spanish Civil War, without getting into too much details, was fought between two factions. There was the faction led by Franco, who went on to rule Spain till the 1970s. So, what basically fifth column is, one set of troops had four columns, and their general said, I also have a fifth column that is behind enemy lines that's going to rise up in rebellion against the enemy. So that's the fifth column. Fifth column basically refers to a group of individuals who are already behind enemy lines, and they are going to destabilize the enemy forces from within. So I talked about the fifth column in video number 490. In video number 491, I talked about NEET PG. Now, NEET PG, of course, is an exam that I was very scared of, and I believe in that video I talked about my experience with NEET PG. And in video number 492, again, I talked about my experience when my internship ended. In video number 493, the NEET PG, I believe, is the problem with NEET PG is that there is so much uncertainty. It was introduced in 2012. I'm going back to video number 491. NEET PG was first introduced in 2012. Then Supreme Court or I'm not sure which court, but some court of law, I'm pretty sure it was Supreme Court, issued a judgment that NEET PG is not constitutional, it's not proper to conduct this exam. Then this decision was reversed and it was reintroduced in, I believe, 2017. And from 2017 onwards, NEET PG has been conducted. It's the single entrance exam to get postgraduate seats in medical subjects, MD, MS seats in medical subjects, DNB seats also. Some premier institutes, which are called Institutes of National Importance, like AIMS, PGI, NIMHANS. I've talked about that in the video about triple NEET, I believe. It's an older video. So these premier colleges have their own exam. That's called INI CET. And even for super specialty, there are these INI SS exams. In video number 493, I talked about Mongolia, which I find is a fascinating history. When we think about Mongolia, usually if we know about it, we only think about Genghis Khan, or we think about the largest landlocked country in the world, or we think about some country which is north of China, south of Russia, must be under the influence of Russia and China. Either it is under the influence of Russia or it's under the influence of China. Or if we want to imagine the people of Mongolia, we think of them as the Dothraki from the Game of Thrones franchise. Not fair. Mongolia, at some point of time, at the same point of time, I would say, was able to control both Russia and China, which are vastly bigger nations than Mongolia as Mongolia stands in 2025, which is fascinating. But what is more fascinating is just in the 20th century, Mongolia went from a colony as a part of the Qing dynasty. It became a theocracy. Then it became a colony again, following which they became a communist country, and finally, after the fall of the Soviet Union, they became a parliamentary democracy. So within 1 century, within 100 years, they've gone from being a colony to a theocracy to a colony again to a communist country for many decades, and now they are a parliamentary democracy. The number of changes in forms of government and also in the status of being an independent country or a colony, this number of changes that have happened over a period of just 100 years in the history of Mongolia is really fascinating. I find the 20th century history of Mongolia to be more fascinating than the Mongol Empire or the period which is most often talked about when we talk about the history of Mongolia, that is the Genghis Khan, Kublai Khan era. I feel the 20th century of Mongolian history is the most fascinating. In video number 494, I talked about Albania. So when I made the video about Mongolia, I got a request that I should make a video about Albania. So I talked about Albania. Albania also has a very fascinating history. So I talked about Albania right from the before Common Era period all the way to the communist rule in Albania. I believe under the communist dictator there. I'm forgetting the name at this moment. And now Albania, of course, is no longer a communist state. And one of the most famous people from Albania, of course, is Mother Teresa, who has a special significance for Indians because Mother Teresa's work, charitable work, she founded missionaries of charity, and most of it was based out of Calcutta, and she got a Nobel Prize for that. And later, posthumously, she got sainted. She became a saint. So she is now regarded as Saint Teresa of Calcutta, I believe. In video number 490, many people I know have met Mother Teresa in person. So that's the significance of Mother Teresa in my life. In video number 495, I talked about facial nerve palsy, specifically the topo diagnostic tests. Now, topo diagnostic tests, I believe, are very important to know because they help you understand where the lesion responsible for causing facial nerve palsy exists. The important topo diagnostic tests are Schirmer's test, stapedial reflex test, taste function test, and salivary flow test. It basically tells you, based on the levels at which the branching of the facial nerve is happening, where the problem is. So if the problem is above the level of branching, then the branches below will be affected. And whatever function those branches are responsible for controlling are going to be affected. So if the problem is above the branch which is responsible for lacrimation, then lacrimation will be affected, which can be tested by Schirmer's test. If the problem is above the level of the nerve to stapedius, then the nerve to stapedius will be affected. The stapedial reflex will be lost. If the lesion is above the branch which is responsible for taste function, then the taste function will be lost. So salivary flow will be reduced. So that's the point of topo diagnostic tests. How they are performed, I discussed in detail in 495. In 496, I talked about Yap, which I believe is the single most fascinating country in the world. Yap uses currency in the form of rocks. Now, when I first heard about it, I thought these rocks would be small pebbles which you can carry in your pocket, and you can toss one pebble to another person and they can keep a store of the pebbles at home. But no, some of these pebbles are so big, they're not even pebbles. They are rocks 12 feet in size. They've never been moved. It's just word of mouth understanding that now this rock is owned by this individual, and they are just spoken agreements. It's not even written. I don't know if it's written or not, but it's just rocks that have never been moved, which are now owned by some other individual. The ownership is passed on. So that was fascinating. And there are many other fascinating details about Yap, which is a Pacific island nation. And mostly, I think, till about the 80s, it was under the control of the United States of America. Even today, United States of America has influence over Yap, but it is a country that one should really know more about. In video number 497, I talked about Burma, which is also known as Myanmar. And one of the things I always was confused about is which word is more appropriate for Burma. Is it Burma or Myanmar? And it's one of the things that I've always been fascinated about because I am from India. And in India, also many cities or places were renamed by the British so that the British could be able to pronounce it in an easier way. Of course, some Indian names are difficult for British people to pronounce, just like many British words or British things are difficult for me to pronounce and for me to understand. So I understand the concept of renaming Indian cities because it's not difficult for me to pronounce Kolkata. I guess it was difficult for the British to pronounce it Kolkata, so they renamed it Calcutta. So, what was Burma and Myanmar in that context? In that context, of course, Burma was easier for the British to pronounce. But the interesting thing is, Burma and Myanmar mean the same thing. Myanmar is just a more formal way of referring to the same thing that Burma is referring to, which is I suppose it is the majority ethnic population in Burma, the Burma population. But Myanmar is the more appropriate term from a logical point of view, although there is an argument that Burma is the term many people should use because Myanmar was the term that was introduced in an undemocratic fashion, but that is for politically inclined people to argue. I feel Myanmar is the more appropriate term for logical reasons. In video number 498, I talked about a brief history of Sri Lanka, which of course is a fascinating country and with a fascinating natural beauty, and I feel really, really interesting history, especially in the second half of the 20th century. But also in the early period, with Prince Vijaya and Theravada Buddhism, all that. I've talked about the details of Sri Lankan history. Often when we talk about Sri Lanka, in the Indian context, we only talk about the civil war and cricket and all the other gory details. But Sri Lanka has a much more storied history, and I talked about all of that in video number 498. In video number 499, I talked about Sir Cyril Radcliffe and how his actions ruined millions of lives in India, although I don't blame him personally for that. He was just doing his job. The job itself was made impossible for him. He said that if he had about 3 years, he could have done a better job, but he was only given 5 weeks to draw a line across the Indian subcontinent, which created new countries, India and Pakistan. In video number 500, I talked about 9 methods to maximize misery. And I keep thinking 9 methods to minimize misery, but actually I made a video called 9 methods to maximize misery, because this was a play on the fact that most videos on YouTube tell you how to be happy, kind of try to solve your problems. Even I have tried to solve so many of your problems, especially related to MRCS. If you are a stranger and you know me, you probably know me because I have talked so much about MRCS. But in this video, in video number 500, I talked about the other side of the coin, the things that you should not do preferably, but if you do them consistently, then you will definitely maximize the misery potential of your life. In video number 501, I talked about third places. I did not know what third places meant, but of course, I am familiar with what third places are. I just did not know they were called third places. So this is something which I have noticed has slowly disappeared from my life, and I don't know if about your life, but third places don't really exist in my life. I go to work and I come back from work to home. That's just about it. But third places are these literally third places, not home, not work, where you can basically gather around with people and have a good time. Not necessarily spend money. You can have a good time without having to spend money. In video number 502, I talked about Manchester United. Manchester United, of course, is the club that I've supported from a very, very long time. It's not just, I think from 1999, I have been supporting Manchester United. And they're having trouble. I'm thinking of making a more detailed video about Manchester United. Maybe I'll release it soon. I had shot it, but it had very poor audio quality, so I did not upload it. But I might make another video about Manchester United very, very soon. In video number 503, I talked about Tuvalu. So the video that I talked about Manchester United, I was talking about the Europa League final against Tottenham Hotspur, which of course Manchester United lost 0-1. So it was perhaps the worst season in the history of Manchester United when they have not been relegated. And Manchester United have been relegated in the past. They finished sixth. I don't think the season is yet over, but if it is, they finished 16th in the English Premier League. And the English Premier League has 20 sides. If they had finished 18th or lower, they would have been relegated, Manchester United. So I don't know. I don't know if Manchester United have hit rock bottom. I would think rock bottom would be getting relegated, but they've just done a little bit better than that in this season. In video number 503, I talked about Tuvalu, which is again an island country. It's basically 9 islands, 9 atolls, coral reef islands. These islands are just 2 meters above sea level, and so they definitely are a threat when it comes to the problems that can be created by climate change. And Tuvalu is also very interesting because it's one of the least visited countries in the world. Only about 2,000 people visit the country in some years, which is more than the number of people that visit Eiffel Tower every hour. So, which is more? I don't think it's more. It's less. So more than 2,000 people visit the Eiffel Tower in every hour. I got that wrong. 2,000 people in a year is a very small number, is what I'm trying to get at. Many places, many tourist attractions have more people visiting that attraction in a single day. Whereas over a period of a year, only about 2,000 people visit Tuvalu. So Tuvalu again is a very interesting country, very fascinating. It's 4th smallest country in the world. Population of I think 10,000, a little bit more than that. 26 square kilometers is the entire landmass area of the country. So again, Tuvalu, if you get a chance, do visit Tuvalu. It's in the Pacific Islands. It's not close to any other major country. It's a tiny dot on the map, but even tiny dots on the map have extreme significance culturally, historically. And one of the very interesting things about Tuvalu is that they are so aware of the possibility that their island nation can be wiped off the map that they are even contemplating uploading their digital identity on the metaverse, so that at least in the metaverse they continue to exist. It's just surreal. It's like, to an extent, every one of us, we have a digital footprint. We have a Facebook account, we have an Instagram account, Snapchat, all that. And we have done various things on those accounts which will exist for a very long time. But imagine the country we live in, that doesn't exist. It's not there, it's underwater now. So the only way we can talk about our country and actually show people that this country existed is by keeping a digital footprint in the cloud or in the metaverse. That's what people in Tuvalu, the government of Tuvalu, has considered doing. So that was quite something which I found difficult to ignore. So I talked about Tuvalu, which also has a very interesting domain name .tv. So that's also a good thing. So thank you for watching this live stream. I think I should also talk about one more thing from the last week, where I got a feeling of what it means to be a parent without really having any children of my own. And suffice to say that it's a very important task to take care of people who... it's a difficult task to be a parent, I feel. That's what I understood in certain events of last week, where I understood that if the child, or maybe an adult child, is not doing the work properly, then the parents do feel concerned, to say the least. And I will definitely look into it so that people who are placed under my mentorship definitely succeed. That will be my endeavor. So let's move on, and thank you for watching this live stream. I'll try to be live again next week. Bye bye.